You're not listening, are you? No.
Captain, we're willing to risk our lives, even go beyond the call of duty. But asking us to ride with Tootie and Muldoon, that's just too much.
Don't spooky. He never says a word. The day I rode with him, we arrested a bookmaker who called me a dirty, rotten cop. I could have kissed him. At least he talked to me.
You can't shut Tootie up. The day I rode with him, he talked for 8 solid hours. He used to wear suspenders, but now he wears a belt. 8 hours!
Hold it, man, hold it. Let's face it, men. The only one who can ride with Tootie is Muldoon. The only one who can ride with Muldoon is Tootie. Got to get them together in car 54 again.
53rd to dispatch. Car 22, 807 and 54 to Marmion and East 175th Street. Accident. Over and out.
Hey, Tootie, come in. Tootie, will you make out the report? I'll check the damage.
Sure.
Oh, will you check the facts? I'll check the witness.
Good. Come here. What happened?
I was driving along maybe 8 or 9 miles an hour. And this guy came out of nowhere.
What's the license?
I guess that takes care of it.
Well, that's it. Oh, jump a jump. Good. Oh, jump a Jehoshaphat. Beautiful dreamer. So, oh, beautiful dreamer. Hey, I took my brother-in-law's car in for that 1,000-mile check. And it actually was 1,010 miles. But they did it for me anyway. They're real nice. They give me that 10-mile break.
There's a hold-up in the Bronx, Brooklyn's broken out in fights. There's a traffic jam in Harlem that backed up to Jackson Heights. There's a scout who shot a child, Cruz just went out of wild. Oh, 54, where are you?
The wait is over. The Digi Anywhere USB Plus is back in stock and ready to ship. With its high-speed USB over IP technology, the Digi Anywhere USB Plus lets you connect USB devices anywhere in the world. Connect, access, and manage USB devices from anywhere, just as if they were right there with you. Digi Anywhere USB Plus, connecting your world.
Streaming with Canon GL2.
Which from China to supposedly iron out Trump's insane tariff war, which he didn't, a jet-lagged Scott Bessent in all his smug glory sat before the House Ways and Means Committee to discuss a wide range of topics, from tariffs and trade to income tax to the potential impact of the Big Beautiful Bill Act making its way through the Senate. Now, predictably, the House Republicans showered him with praise for the fine work that he's doing and for making such a long trip to do his job. And just as predictable was the chilly reception from House Democrats.
So it is interesting that you believe all of these groups are wrong, from your former colleague Elon Musk to left-leaning groups, to right-leaning groups, the center groups, the World Bank. Everything is going hunky-dory. The reality is, I can see why you would have that opinion. You, as a billionaire, will reap the rewards of this tax cut, while 16 million Americans will lose their health coverage. That is the sad reality of the situation.
Oofa. Welcome home, Mr. Secretary. You're terrible. Anyway, I'm not a fan of this kind of political theater generally, because they become grandstanding platforms for Congress people to score points for social media in their respective echo chambers. But every so often, there are revealing exchanges that tell us something more about what's going on right now. And there are three in particular that I want to look at today before having a conversation generally about Bessent, because he's clearly the leading spokesperson for the Trump economic agenda, ahead of other ridiculous figures like Howard Lutnick and Peter Navarro, and more nefarious behind-the-scenes advisors like Russell Vought and Stephen Mirren. Now, by the way, we did a whole episode on UNFTR last year about Russell Vought, the head of the OMB, the chief architect of Project 2025 and the resident ghoul of this administration. And that's saying a lot because Stephen Miller's part of it. He's seriously the worst. Anyway, the three moments that I want to examine before getting into a wider discussion are pertinent because they reveal this administration's hostility toward the American people and Bessent's personal disregard for the working class. Let's take a look at this first exchange regarding the IRS.
The IRA bill swelled the ranks of the collection agents, and because the Democrats did that, because it gave them a good score, that the CBO said, if you hire more bodies, then there should be more collections. Data, I believe, has shown that that is not true. It would be like saying, oh, if we draft Scott Bessent and we have him play against LeBron James, he will do fine. That these new auditors are not equipped to audit sophisticated taxpayers, they would undoubtedly be unleashed against working Americans.
First of all, the LeBron analogy is the ultimate false equivalency. Staffing auditors to fill positions in a severely understaffed IRS is not the same thing as putting the Treasury Secretary on a basketball court, in case anybody needed that clarity. Now, before we dig into the falsehood that he's spreading here, though, you can feel the level of disdain this guy has for working people. To suggest that you need to be LeBron level capable in your particular field to follow instructions for auditing a tax return is pretty deplorable. He's basically saying that the average American worker the government hired to fill these positions was too stupid to read a tax return. So just hold that under your hat, because you're going to notice a pattern in his responses. But the deeper issue here is that he's lying about the results. Now, we can disagree on the efficacy of the Biden administration's broader economic vision. I mean, I have an endless number of critiques regarding Biden's bottom-up, middle-out strategy, and was on record pretty early on saying that most of the measures adopted in both the American Rescue Plan and the Inflation Reduction Act would have long-tail, latent economic benefits, but that they were devoid of immediate economic relief programs that would have bridged the gap between the pain being felt in the broader economy now and the eventual lift that the provisions in these bills would have had. So we argued at the time that the biggest risk to these bills was Biden not getting reelected, meaning that they were good bills, but the stuff that was eliminated by the likes of Manchin and Sinema in the capitulation to the GOP were the things that would have made an immediate positive impact. And so here we are. But one of the things that the IRA specifically accomplished was to bring high-income tax evaders and avoiders to the table to pay their fair share. All right, maybe not their fair share, but at least what they owed. In 2024, the IRS went after 125,000 high-income individuals who hadn't filed tax returns since 2017, and they'd already gotten 21,000 of them to cough up taxes. It also went after approximately 1,600 millionaires with delinquent tax debt, and so far, 80% of them had made payments leading to more than $1 billion recovered. Now, in the grand scheme of things, it's a drop in the bucket. But what it did was force compliance among the wealthy to stop evading taxes. But Bessent countered, saying that he just believes the data weren't true. The data, by the way, came from the Treasury, not the CBO. So he's basically saying the information that came from the department that he's in charge of was bullshit. I mean, you can't make this up. Now, another part of the Big Beautiful Bill Act that is an absolute disaster is the cuts to healthcare. To be clear, again, I'm a vocal proponent for Medicare for all, and I've written at length about it. But to the extent that the Affordable Care Act is the law of the land, it's imperative that at a minimum, we protect the millions of Americans who rely on the extension of Medicaid provisions that are in the bill. Now, an amendment was proposed to do just that, and it was universally shot down by House Republicans. So the question was posed to Bessent.
And that is why at the hearing for this bill, I introduced an amendment to strike the provisions that undermine the coverage of the ACA. Every single Republican on this committee voted no. So Secretary Bessent, I'm asking you a question which I only want a yes or no answer. How would you have voted on my amendment to protect the ACA and keep millions on their health insurance?
No.
Now, obviously, Bessent isn't in Congress, So it's a hypothetical question that doesn't really matter. But what his answer reveals is a shared sentiment among Republicans that access to health care among the nation's poor and working class means nothing to them.
No.
And that's because, as many have noted, the big, beautiful bill that passed the House is being considered a functional repeal of the ACA because it procedurally guts Medicaid by eliminating automatic re-enrollment. It requires detailed documentation to maintain tax credits and coverage, and allows enhanced tax credits to expire. It also creates shorter enrollment periods and increased paperwork to even participate, along with work requirements that completely overlook stay-at-home caretakers, as just one example. Ultimately, it cuts around $880 billion over 10 years in state funding as well, which will have an outsized impact on states that are ultimately responsible for the administration of Medicaid. And it's an absolute bloodbath for the poorest people in this country, and they could not care less. Now, this last clip is maybe the most revealing on a lot of levels. So by this point, Bessent had already been in a testy exchange with a member of Congress who insisted that he stop trampling over her to mansplain her own questions. So when Representative Terry Sewell of Alabama had her turn, she said that she brought questions from her constituents and asked that the secretary provide brief answers. Now, we'll talk about the substance in a moment, but look at the level, again, of smug disdain that he has for her and her constituents, but how Sewell gutted him like a tauntaun with just a few words.
The last question that I was asked to ask you was, when will we hit the debt ceiling? I know that this big, beautiful bill also means a debt increase in the debt ceiling. And frankly, I heard you say that that is something that's an imperative. I would agree with that. When do we foresee us hitting the debt ceiling?
Congressman, I want to congratulate you. You have a very sophisticated constituency to ask questions like this. That the so-called X date is a...
With all due respect, just because you're poor doesn't mean you're ignorant.
As I said, very sophisticated.
Yeah.
It was
can you answer the question? I want to know. I'd like to know whether or not.
Saying thank you to compliments.
Fun, right? Now, here's the point. Suddenly, the GOP is all lifting the debt ceiling, even though they weaponize this against Democratic administrations time and time again. But the reason they're trying to memorialize the lifting of the debt ceiling as part of this bill is because the GOP spending plan and tax cuts combined to deliver a whopping $2 trillion to the federal debt above what it was projected to be under Biden. Again, I've had this conversation repeatedly with listeners and viewers as part of the "we can afford it" camp. So long as we're reducing inequality, spending on social safety nets, offering federal job guarantees, and providing health coverage to every American. What we can't afford is to continue the practice of welfare for the wealthiest among us and the military-industrial complex and all the people who turn around and buy our elections while we gut programs that literally feed, clothe, house, and care for people. And what's fascinating about a guy like Bessent is that, believe it or not, I had high hopes that he would be the adult in the romper room that is the Trump cabinet. The Treasury Secretary is an important position. And no matter your feelings about prior secretaries like Tim Geithner or Hank Paulson, Jack Lew, Janet Yellen, or even Steve Mnuchin, these were professionals with financial pedigrees who at least pretended to care about the working class. But Bessent, he's not the adult in the room at all. And he revealed himself an elitist snob who wears his disdain for Congress, the media, and clearly the American people on both his face and his sleeve. Now, not for nothing, the first Treasury Secretary of the country was Alexander Hamilton, the immigrant. So in the end, he's just another hedge fund jackal, purportedly worth hundreds of millions of dollars, who likes to remind us all that he took a pay cut for this job. And his sole mission appears to be to take care of his people, even if he has to do so by picking the last dime out of your pocket. So I know these hearings go nowhere, and the cast is set for the big, beautiful bill act to tear apart the country. But I'm glad that he had to listen to how some of us feel about it. So to recap, in just this one hearing, he called the staff of the Treasury, the CBO, and Congress liars, and that Americans are too stupid to work at the IRS, that he's okay gutting Medicaid knowing that millions of Americans are going to lose health coverage and the cuts will blow a hole in red state budgets throughout the country. Lifting the debt ceiling to make way for Trump's tax cuts is the only acceptable circumstance, and that even when he's delivering a backhanded compliment, women should say thank you.
No.
For deeper dives into economic and socioeconomic stories, make sure to check out unftr.com or find me at UNFTR on YouTube. Reporting from New York, I'm Max from UNFTR for the Midas Touch Network.
The truth is more important than ever. Check out our new Truth Over Lies collection at store.midastouch.com. All 100% USA Union made.
Grammarly now uses AI to help you write, not just revise. Type a prompt and generate a persuasive, mistake-free draft in seconds.
Hey everyone, how's it going? Hope you're doing well today. Today I want to show you a cool feature that you might not know about on the Canon line of cameras, the cinema cameras and mirrorless cameras, that will really help you nail your manual focus shots. I find it's super helpful when I'm doing video especially. Comes in handy also when I'm doing videos, but the video, when you don't want to use autofocus all the time, and stop focus or whatever, this feature is super helpful. So let's just dive right in and I'll show you where it is. Okay, here we are outside the Canon menu system. So if we just click on menu, the menu will pop up and you'll see it's over here. It's under the AF section and it's number 2. And then you'll see that item below that says focus guide. So what I'm going to do is click on that, click on, and that's it. So we're going to pop back out to the menu, and then you'll see this little square with little triangles at the top. So I'll show you what happens when I change the focus here. So I'm going to pull the focus back towards me, and you'll see it changing. Now the little arrows point towards which way you want to focus. So move it forward. Everything's in focus. It'll go green when it's all in focus. And then if I go forward a bit, it comes out of focus again. So move it back, just like that. And you can move the focus item around whatever you want. Say I wanted to focus on something, in the foreground, whatever you're doing, whatever you're focusing on. Say you're doing rack focus, person in the front, person in the back, or objects, something like that. And you can move it with the joystick that I've got set up here. And it's the same in the photo section. I'll just show you. I'll switch over to photo mode here. You see it's a little bit darker. Just fix the exposure a little. But same thing, you go into menu, and in the AF section, you'll see a couple of different items, or an extra item, but you see here, it's the same there. It's focus guide. No, not that one. Where am I going? Focus guide on. Okay. And then it'll pop up too when you're doing, if you want to use manual focus for your photography. And that's it. Really, really super helpful. Even if you have a big monitor on, I like to do video with a big monitor, but this just extra feature is super helpful. But I ran into an issue, a couple of weeks ago, where I didn't have the right cable to attach my monitor to my camera, and so I had to use my small screen again. But with that, it was easy to nail focus and get the shots I wanted. If you like this video, maybe hit thumbs up and subscribe. And hopefully I'll see you soon. Now that it's the new year and back into making videos. Great. Have a good one. Peace.
Welcome to More.
Thank you.
Let's go up.
Choose from hundreds of quality used cars.
Shipped to your location.
You'll enjoy Rewards Plus perks,
like saving up to $5,000 on your next car.
A trusted local brand offers peace of mind.
Welcome to More. Visit getmore@matthews.com.
This is Wix Studio, built to meet any brief. With recalls for complex structure, let AI map your site architecture in wireframes. Then dive into your favorite part, the design. Wix Studio, built for the way you create.
Now I'd like to welcome Democratic Representative from Washington, Adam Smith. He's a Democratic ranking member of the House Armed Services Committee. I'm going to take a deep breath, Congressman, because there's a lot to talk about today, none of which is good news. First, I just want to get your thoughts about these horrible tragedies taking place in Minnesota early today.
Well, it's terrifying. I mean, it is a direct threat to our representative democracy, and we've seen an increase certainly in violent rhetoric, but also in acts of violence. And I think everyone needs to be more careful about the rhetoric they use and to condemn all of this. But, you know, and I'm sorry, President Trump, you know, uses some of the worst rhetoric out there, and also pardoning all of the January 6th attackers at the U.S. Capitol.